Hey guys, thanks for tuning in and welcome to another episode of The Space Between. This is episode 17 and we have named this episode Vulture. We're not going to tell you why, but I bet you're going to guess. So I want to introduce my friends that are with me today. So today we have Cameron and Karen. Hi guys, thank you so much for being on again this week. How are y'all doing?
Doing
Awesome
well.
sauce.
Hello, DMV.
Awesome sauce. So because I'm hoping that this podcast is in two different places. So of course you can listen to the podcast on any of your podcasting apps, but you can also watch this on YouTube on our new channel, Kiss on the Lipsmeyer, which is Lipsmeyer. Now, I'm hoping that this one is going to be on YouTube, but I'm not for sure. So if we are, great, have fun with this, sit back, roll a joint, grab a beer, do whatever, and come into our conversation. But if you're just listening to this on the podcast, well, welcome. And you can watch this later on YouTube if you want to, hopefully. So Cameron, tell me what's been going on in your world and what's got you excited for 2023?
Ready for the summer, ready for concert season, just really working to really get ready to get some time off and just enjoy life with the kids and the family. Just looking forward to it. Getting
Absolutely. So talk to me about your hat.
Stay human. It says it all. So
Yep.
It's one of the things Michael Franti puts out into the world. He's just telling us all to stay human. We have to remember that every day.
If someone has never heard of Michael Franti, can you tell them explain them, because I honestly learned about him from you in one of our previous episodes. And so of course I listened and instantly fell in love with his positivity and the vibes that he was giving off. So how did you find him and what's kept you going with him?
I was introduced to Michael Franti back in 2007, and his music has taken a lot of changes over time. He was very political initially, very rap infused, but he really has kind of grown his sound, his perspective on life, and he's still very political, but he's still very about getting us all back to the roots of, again, staying human and supporting each other. And I think that's it's important to have that good positive message out there amongst all the chaos we're dealing with in this world.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much. You're always a wonderful co-host, and so thank you for being on this week. Now, in a second, we have Karen, but that's not her name on Zoom. It's Miss Matthews. So if you'll remember her from a few podcasts in the past, if you haven't listened to this podcast before, both of my guests have been on several of my podcasts. So be sure to listen back. There are 16 more that you've got to catch up and listen to. So Karen, thank you so much for being on the podcast this week. What's been keeping you busy and what are you looking forward to in 2023?
I am looking forward to concert season. We have our trip planned, a road trip for a couple weeks. I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about now the Gorge. Even though we have no tickets, we're still going. We have no tickets. We're there.
It's gonna happen. It'll all happen.
I hope to see you there, Karen.
I'm not.
We'll be there. We just don't have tickets to the concert yet.
Not yet.
We'll be there.
I'm excited. I know. Yes, we did. No, I'm excited. I have some big birthdays. My son's going to be 40 in May. While you and I are on tour, my son's going to turn 40. So I'm really excited for that. I know. I can't believe it.
I can't believe it. I mean, you're one of my best friends, and maybe that's why you get me, is because you have a kid my age. Is that it? No, you're not a mother figure to me, though. Not at all.
Thanks, Renae.
So Cameron, what is on the list now? I know we've been trying to talk you into coming down to the Woodlands, at least for the first one, just so you and I, Andy and Karen, you're not going to be at the Texas show, but whoever is there, we're going to open up with a podcast either at night zero or the night of. So be sure to keep pushing your wife and saying, hey, I'm going to need to drive to Texas in May. I don't know if you can do that vacation wise, planning to go into Europe and everything, but I'd love to have you there, Cameron.
Woodlands is on my list, so I'm trying to get that all sorted out.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So if y'all are planning your tour dates, which I'm fairly sure that most people are, and I have it written down in a couple of places, maybe like Karen says, you got to manifest what you want. So writing it down and putting it up on your vision board or whatever. Mine got a little carried away. My vision is really strong this year. I can see myself at a lot of shows. Now, whether that happens or not, no, we'll have to see. It's always like, I don't know. But guys, thank you so much for being on this week's podcast. So this is how I'm calling this episode Vulture. So back in 2018, right before Come Tomorrow was released, the magazine Vulture actually interviewed Dave Matthews alone and had a lot of interesting questions and answers in this solo interview. So I sent this to Cameron and Karen today, and so they kind of read through it. And Cameron has very good talking points in this, and so we're just going to start from the beginning. And so basically, again, what this is just a one-on-one interview with Dave Matthews. I'm trying to see. So this would have been May of 2018. So you can go back and read the whole thing because we are clearly not going to read the whole thing. Now, guys, when I had sent this to you, had you read it before?
I feel like I had read it, but I can't remember. It just seemed very familiar when I was reading it. Like in the back of my head, I was like, oh yeah, I have read this years ago, but then maybe I didn't. So then I was doubting myself, like maybe I didn't, but it did sound very familiar.
Right. I think for me, and maybe it's a confusion, maybe kind of like what you're feeling. Have I read this or have I heard it somewhere else or what? But a lot of the answers that I feel like Dave gave were answers that he's consistently given, no
Right.
matter who's interviewing him. So I didn't feel like this particular interview taught me anything that I didn't know. It's just always interesting to see exactly what he will say when people ask him some questions that may be a little outside of the comfort zone. And I feel like this person kind of did push him a little bit. But my God, when in Rome, you do it. So let's just start with a few questions that I thought were interesting. Now, I have been doing a lot of studying, and there are so many things that I want to get into on this podcast. YouTube biographies, or is it a biography when it's about a band? Is it a biography, or is it what is it? What's the word? Documentary maybe about the band, something. Anyways, I've been watching a lot of YouTube documentaries because we have almost 32 years of information, and even before the band was established. But I have just been so like nerdy about watching these documentaries and the things Dave said and how much he's grown in the 32 years and grown as a person, grown as all the things. But for the most part, I want to say, yeah, his answers stay really consistent. So let's just start out with this question. So the interviewer asked, there's this romantic idea. So again, this is the question. There's this romantic idea of the rock star as someone who ruthlessly follows his or own artistic vision. But there's another kind of star, someone like Jimmy Buffett, or in a different way, the Grateful Dead, who become vessels for a subculture, and their vision involves attending to that subculture. In your experience, are these two modes necessarily oppositional? And his answer is, I think I've been lucky to follow my instincts, or at least to try to. I'll tell you, I'll ask a question, and they said, what question would you ask? And he said, can I justify doing this? And so when I read those words that Dave Matthews was saying, can he justify doing this? Well, it had me. I was like, oh my God, what is he talking about here? Can he justify doing this? And so he went on to say, this is me driving this career. Am I challenging myself? Am I eating my own tail? Am I just feeding off that thing that allows me to be doing so extraordinarily well? That's always the tension. Maybe you want to be a painter, but to make money, you have to take up commercial art. Maybe you want to be a landscaper or photographer, but I'm going to edit that out.
Well, I like while you're looking, Renae. I like when he talked about away from the world. and
Mhm.
how he let people tell him that, hey, it's not right, it's not finished, you need to do this, you need to do that. And he kind of listened to them when at the
Mhm.
end he really shouldn't have. It was fine. And how with Come Tomorrow, which is of course what this is about, he said, no, I'm standing my ground. This is it. This is ready. Let's do it. And that's why it took him 6 years to do Come Tomorrow, because at the beginning he had that same self-doubt that he had
Mhm.
from the world, and listening to not his instincts, but to other people. And we've all done
Right.
that in life. I know I've done that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a thing that comes with just wisdom of knowing yourself well enough to be like, I appreciate your feedback, but I'm pretty solid in my decisions and I want to see where this goes, and being responsible for if it doesn't turn out the way you wanted, that's on you, and being able to go, okay, I can take the pressure of that. But yay for him for just going, you know what, this is what I wanted, this is what I visioned, this is what we collectively wanted to put together, and what I had visioned, and here we go. Whether you think it's ready or not, here we go.
And you can
So
see
yeah,
he trusted his
I didn't know
instinct.
that about that album.
Yeah, you can see he trusted his instinct. When Come Tomorrow came out, and it was a great bio work. And I think he got those voices out of his head and really focused on his art and his musicianship and what he wanted to put out in the world, and it was well received.
How do you think a person gets to that point, like to where they're so clear? Is it experience? Is it wisdom? Is it just, the older you get, how do you get in a mindset where you go, yeah, I'm
Well,
doing exactly what I want?
I think it's the older you get, because my ex-husband John was 10 years older than me, and I was 20 and he was 30, and it was like, oh my gosh, Karen, I can't believe you're doing this. When you're 10 years older, you're going to figure it out. And I would get so mad. And then I would turn 30 and he was 40, and it was the same thing. Well, Karen, we're still here. When you get older, you're going to get it. You need to be 10 years older. And that was our private joke. Well, I guess I'm not 10 years older. But once I hit those ages, I realized, man, I was so silly or stupid or ignorant. And when I was 20, but now I'm 30, I know more. And now I'm 40, I know more. Well, now I'm 56. Trust me, I know a heck of a lot more. And I look back on my life and laugh, and would I have written some of those songs now that, was written back then? But I think it just involves in your growth of just like you said, wisdom and age, life experiences. He has young kids back in the day, and now they're college age, and you're dealing with different things than he was years ago writing
Right.
songs. So yeah, I think a lot of it is just wisdom and confidence you don't have when you're 20 that you now have. Like, I have more confidence in my 50s. Well, that's
Can you remember being 20 though? Remember how confident you were at 20? I mean, I remember.
my
It's all
first-
stupidity, but
We thought we were confident at 20, but we didn't have a clue what we were doing. We were still trying to figure it out. And I think the older we get, the more we figure it out, the more we trust
absolutely.
ourselves and carve our own path in life.
And I'm so happy
Absolutely.
he's doing that, and he's just putting his foot down. And that, what a lesson for all of us to even read that. Like, no, this is what I produced. This is what I like. This is what I wrote. This is what I sang. This is the feeling and the meaning behind it that I want. And that's it. We're not changing it. And I like that.
Yeah, I do too. So I thought that this was interesting, and I cannot remember when Lady Bird came out, but I'm going to guess that it came out obviously before Come Tomorrow came out, because one of the questions that the interviewer asked was, how satisfying was Lady Bird for you, both for the way it used crashed into me so warmly, and also for how it showed a fan of yours who didn't fit any of the negative cliches, and also that movie kicked off such a nice wave of affection for the band. So his answer to that was, basically, how does he feel about Lady Bird and him playing, or his music playing such a big part in that film? Because, anybody that's seen that movie, whether they've heard of Dave Matthews, whether they had ever heard Crash, they walked away with that movie knowing that song, because the way they used it in that movie was so powerful. And it was like her, song that was kind of fun and kind of silly, but so he said, there's a great headline I saw online, something like Lady Bird somehow resurrects the Dave Matthews Band. And when I read that, I was like, resurrects the Dave Matthews Band? Is that really what people thought was happening when they heard that? It's like, oh, you're trying to bring Dave and the boys back. God, no.
No, I read that when the movie came out. I remember reading that and laughing to myself and saying that same thing. Like, what are you talking about? There's no resurrection.
I don't like that. And I don't like the fact that, well, I don't like that. But he said, without question, and some express it with more vinegar than others. True, there are people who truly don't like my band, and that's him saying that, and he knows it, and that's cool because you know what? That's what any human should say. Not everyone's gonna like you. Not everyone's gonna, so it's just part of life as a human, whether you're in a band or not. Some people are just not gonna like you no matter what. And he said, I think a lot of them just go, I hate the Dave Matthews Band because they saw someone who didn't like, something or heard it from someone. And it's fun. It's not as bad as Nickelback. It's not as bad as Nickelback, but there are like a subculture of people that if you bring up the Dave Matthews Band, they're like, oh my God, kind of just like Nickelback or any of those bands that like to, so there really is a true tribe of people out there. They're just like anti Dave Matthews Band. You can Google that.
Yes, I had one of my bosses that I just worked with that he was a district manager that hated Dave Matthews Band. And he knows that I loved him. I worked with him for 9 years. He knew I loved him. And every time we talk about it, or I'd be excited, oh my God, it's tour season. We're going. Oh my God, they suck. All they do is cover songs. It's the worst band ever. It's like they don't always cover songs. They do have great covers, just like every band. That's all they do.
Be friends with them, Cameron.
I did not know that.
It got to the point of where I'd walk in. It's like, I'm requesting these days off. I'm going to go see Dave Matthews and don't say a goddamn word. But then I was a smart ass and I went and changed every password for our company programs to Dave Matthews Band. Oops. So he had to type it every day.
Well,
it's hard to understand why people don't like the band, but like I can still respect it at the end of the day. Sure. And then I just feel sorry for them because they're missing out on a good party.
That's right. That's how we look at it. I mean, we all have, I know some bands off the top of my head that I don't care for. I'm not going to say I hate any music because I can appreciate every kind of music because it is for somebody, but I don't hate anyone. I will say that I went to a Metallica concert one time and that's not my band. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it in my ears, but with my eyes, it was amazing. So it was just like, you got to look at it differently and soak up the good because they're very talented. It's just not my music. So but I hope that there are more people that can walk into something knowing like, okay, I don't really care for them, but what could I learn from being here, right? Because I think that Dave Matthews has so many, or the band itself has so many positive things that it can teach you besides just watching a group of people on a stage playing an instrument, right? Their lyrics. And Karen, I know that that's something that really is important to you, but just breaking down the songs and listening to the lyrics. And I know I've heard you say when someone has had a bad day or is going through something wrong, you always kind of reach out and say, listen to these lyrics. And that's kind of your push for Dave Matthews Band is to quote lyrics.
It is. And the other thing that I found fascinating, not to get off topic, because I did read in there when he was talking about come tomorrow and exactly what it means. He had said I had looked up what come tomorrow is, and come tomorrow means in the future, not just tomorrow, the day.
Right.
And man, that really hit a chord because some of the songs which are in his lyrics that you hear are really on this album are all about the future.
Mm-hmm.
And he had even written that you have to take the good with the bad. You have to look at it like he talks about the odds are against us when he sings Do You Remember? He talks about the headlines that make him crazy on Black and Bluebird. There'll be dark days on When I'm Weary. And he said, you need to make sure that, you really just got to take the good with the bad and just, I never thought about that album in those terms before.
Yeah,
I love that album. I love every song on that album, but I never for once thought about it in those terms of looking toward, the future. And, there's going to be dark days, but.
It was, that whole album was really about hope and persevering. Just, he's acknowledging we're going through some stuff. He's going through some stuff. All the changes that happened throughout the band coming up to that album, between losing Leroy and all the other changes in the band, there was so much that happened that I think that's what resulted in that come tomorrow.
Let's talk more about that. Let's talk more about that, Cameron, right quick. I only want, you had some really good points that you emailed me regarding just exactly what you're talking about. And so I wanted to kind of segue with that. So again, you put, this might, with not only losing 2 key members in that time frame, but then getting 2 new members, or, in the last 10 years, and having to get, not acquainted, but like musically just like jive together to get the feeling of how it's going to go, and like be like, yes, now you know what to do, and it all worked out. But what has Buddy and Jeff brought to the band in your eyes, Cameron? And same for you, Miss Matthews. What have Buddy and Jeff brought to the band that is noticeable to you as someone that has watched it with every member from 91?
Well, I'll start with just talking about Leroy. And Leroy he wasn't just a saxophonist, he was a voice in the band. He could play a melody that could completely get you all on your feels one way or another. So he really just had a voice. And I think Buddy has came in and really become another voice in the band, which is, I think, fantastic, through his key playing, but also through his voice, his singing. I think that's really been a great asset to the band. And I think, Jeff is a technician on the saxophone. He can play his heart out. But I just try to do my best to avoid, the comparison, because I have many, I have memories of Leroy. I could throw out there, if I say listener support number 41, everybody can hear Leroy's sax solo in their head. Or Jimmy thing on Under Table and Dreaming, you can hear Leroy's solo in your head. And it's like, I really just, I just enjoy the moments with Jeff, and then I just relish my memories, with Leroy. So I think it's
absolutely,
they've really found their place in the band. And I always like to shout out Rashawn. Rashawn is an amazing part of the band as well. So I think, they found their way, and I think it just speaks to, Dave just being able to persevere through those changes and, really allow himself to adapt. And, I think the D&B community is, stayed open-minded, to these changes. I think that's just important, and just allow the music to change from the time when Dave just started on acoustic and then he threw in that electric guitar. He's always throwing in changes, just kind of roll with and trust it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never failed us. It's never failed us. Karen, what are your thoughts on, and this is not a comparison, I don't want it to ever sound like a comparison, but it's just, looking at each person, and with Buddy and Jeff in now, and Rashawn's been in for a while, like, what do they bring to the table outside of what they can do musically? Because they are all bringing stuff.
They are. And Cameron, I agree with everything that you said. And I'm that person that believes that change is not always bad. Sometimes you need to, plow that crop down and have it regrow, because it'll, seriously, be bigger and better. Now, I loved Boyd. I wish I would have been on that episode when you went back and forth. I loved him. But the last 2 or 3 years, he was not there. He was not present. He was just a figure on the stage, and that was it. Now, you compared, I like your comparison to Buddy. I like to think of Buddy like he reminds me of Carter. Carter has that smile on his face all night.
So happy.
All night long, he's smiling. I love it when he blows his bubbles and when he has his bubble gum in his mouth. He is smiling. He is happy. He is killing it. I like his contact with Dave. You can see the pure joy on both of their faces. And I feel Buddy has also stepped in and has that happy personality. When do you ever see Buddy just sitting there?
Never.
He just makes me happy just watching him. And of course, Jeff's phenomenal. He was up for a Grammy. He did not win. He should have, but he was up for a Grammy, where he is just not only a phenomenal musician, but what he does in his community, which I have spoke about before. The things his wife does, it's just humanitarian galore. I just love him. And they're just so happy. They are just so happy. Like, I have goosebumps just even talking about it. Now, do I miss Leroy? 100%. I was at the Bristol show, his last show, and I cried for 2 weeks, and I'm not kidding you. I'll never forget my mother calling me and it's like, Karen, sit down. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's not Dave. That was my first thought. And it's like, no. And she told me, and I'm watching it on Good Morning America. And I cried for like 2 weeks, like it was a family member.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Not only am I a huge fan of the band since they started, growing up in Virginia made it a lot easier, but I look at them as my family and I cry like they're my family, and I'm happy when there's joy and they're my, like they're my family. So that's my little opinion on that.
I agree. I mean, it's more
Absolutely.
than just it's more than just a band. It's more than
That's
just a
just-
group
yeah,
of people.
yeah.
I mean, we've really gotten ourselves invested into this, and I'm not talking about financially, but just like mentally invested into this. Like we want to know that they're all okay and that they're doing well
Mhm.
and that they're happy, right? Like we actually do care that they have happy lives. And if I'm just going to go ahead and say this, and this does not have to be your anything, but if for a moment word got out like directly from the band that they were unhappy and that they really wanted to retire, I'd be like, guys, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah,
And we
good
will have you
run.
forever, but
Yeah.
go home, be with your children, be with your grandchildren, because these days will never come back ever again. And
Yeah.
so, if I knew that that's what they needed, I would be okay with it. And that is going to happen one day. And so, I've kind of just prepared myself like, okay, girl, you gotta
Yes. But
figure it out.
you know what's gonna happen? Like, let's say the Gorge. So the first year they're not playing at the Gorge. You know who's gonna be at the Gorge? About 50,000 of us.
Just to be there. Well,
Just to
there'll be
be
another
there.
band there that
Yeah.
weekend, right?
We're
Who
all
will
gonna
fill in
be
the
there
shoes?
at the Gorge, talking and reminiscing and crying and mourning and being joyful. I'll be the first one lined up to be at the Gorge the first year they're not there, because it's going to be a huge family reunion. We're just going to be missing family members.
That's true.
Even
That's
even
true.
in this article, he mentioned, "I know I can't do this forever."
I
No.
know.
I mean, he was
I've
telling us
seen
back in
people.
2018, it's like, I'm just preparing you now.
Yeah.
I mean, him and I are the same age. We're both 56. I mean,
Mhm.
and now I see, of course you have Mick Jagger and, all of them in their 70s and 80s still doing it, but you got to end up doing something else. And he talks a lot about wanting to be an artist, and I could see him just retiring one day and saying, yep, I've had enough. I've done my thing and now I'm going to go paint in a corner somewhere. And you know what? I would support that. I'd be sad. But the nice thing is this music has gotten us through 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
32 years. I mean, that's crazy.
So the music's always going to be there for the next 32 years with or without them playing.
Mhm. And the
And I look
community's
at the
not going to go away. So
Yeah, and I look at the lifelong friends, Renae being one, my bestie, my sister wife, I love her. We're still going to go on vacations together. We're still going to do things together. We're still going to listen to Dave.
We'll still be listening to Dave, even if Dave's not like a thing anymore. We've still got
Mhm.
32 years of music
Of
that we can
music.
forever listen to and
Well,
forever go, God, you remember that one day or that one concert we were
remember
like
the Pop-Tarts? Do you remember the Pop-Tarts?
Pop-Tarts at Deer Creek?
You
Oh my
crying in the
God.
car because David
I cried a lot, but I'm not embarrassed. Like I'm not the only one, and I know that.
well, and
Have you ever?
Yeah, it
Go
makes me
ahead.
think of the movie Almost Famous. The one character goes, "Some people don't know what it's like to love a band so much that it hurts." And I think
Yes.
that's kind of where we're at,
Yeah.
That's it.
Like we're 100% emotionally invested. But that's my favorite movie. I love that you brought that
That's
up.
my favorite movie.
I love it
I
too.
love that movie
I do too.
so much. And the odd thing is I don't remember when it came out. Do you know approximately when it came out? Was it
I was younger.
2010 or before?
I
Google
can't
that right quick. Well, I had never seen it.
2000.
It was 2000?
2000.
Good
Wow.
grief. Renee, you're old.
Well, I mean, you're older. So year 2000, I did not see it. I actually did not see that until 2018 or 2019.
What?
I know. And it was because I had a fairly, I just was waiting for Justin Lipsmeyer to come into my life. And he was like, this is a really great movie. I can see that you would like it so much. Once he got to know about like all my ins and outs with the Dave Matthews Band and like behind the scenes stuff, and could totally totally see myself in that movie, like being like, oh, I just want to write a little paper about you, I'll just follow you around everywhere. So I saw it and I love it, and that is my favorite movie. I love it. If you've never seen it,
yeah, that's how
go
we
watch
are
it.
with the Matthews Band. I remember seeing it in the movie theater with John, and it was so phenomenal. Of course, you have to go to the record store and get, buy the CD of the soundtrack.
Sure. Yeah, back when you had to buy CDs,
Oh,
or
I
even
miss those
soundtracks.
days. I like a record store. Like I still love a library. I love to read. I'm reading an excellent book right now, The Heroine Diaries. Nikki Sixx just throwing it out there. It's really good. But anyway, I love a record store like a library. I'd
too.
like to go in. And I know when you posted those pictures, I was so jealous. Like I want to be there. I want to go through all the I would have probably bought one of every album in there.
Well, I can't afford it. They have, since vinyls are a novelty now, and now that like young people are really enjoying them for the uniqueness of it or whatever. And I know they have a different sound, blah, blah, blah. A new vinyl, or even an old, like, okay, say it came out in 76, but you got a new copy of it, or a fairly decent copy of it that's used. It's going to cost you, like, vinyls are expensive. They're so expensive. So the best place you're going to find them for a good price is, your thrift stores and your secondhand stores, and just go Goodwill, like go through the records, because people just give them away and they don't even know what they're giving away half the time. I've never found a Dave Matthews Band vinyl and anywhere like in a used.
I had Under the Table in Training, and I don't know where it is with my 10 moves. I have no idea where my albums went, but I've been looking for Under the Table in Training, and I found it for $300.
Oh, can
I'm
you
not
imagine?
Yeah, I love Dave, don't get me wrong. And, the next time I see him, I'll just see if he has a copy laying around.
Yeah, of course he will, in his car. Obviously, he just keeps them.
And
Like, let me get my Sharpie. I'm signing for you, Karen.
carry
Mrs. Matthews, thank you so much for your support.
I carry Sharpie with me just in case.
But yeah, vinyls, they're expensive, but nostalgic. Like, we went in the other night to a great store, and it's in Fayetteville. I go and I'm just looking through the stuff. There's a bunch of young people in there. So honestly, I kind of felt like out of place, because in Fayetteville is a college town. That's where the U of A is and stuff. So everybody's like 20 in there. And here I come in with, all my music experience, all my old age. And I look through all of the clearance section, because I knew that's where the good stuff was going to be, especially stuff from like the 80s and 90s and things I wanted to see. Probably going to be in the clearance section. So I go over there and I'm looking, and I find a CD. Oh my God, what was it? Alien Hog. I think that's what it was. And it doesn't matter what it is, but I literally had not yet. Space Hog. What did I say? Alien Hog. It's Space Hog. This album I think came out in, good Lord, 1995. And I listened to it so much in the late 90s that I loved it, but I had not heard it since 1998. And when I saw that CD, I pulled it up on Apple Music, because now why would I buy the CD when I can just be like beep boop boop boop, and then it's on my phone forever? Why would I buy it? Although you should support local businesses. But when I heard it, it was literally like my body was transported back to that time in my brain. It was so cool. Have y'all had an experience like that, where you hear a song that you haven't heard in a really long time, and it takes you back to like a place and a time, and maybe even a smell? Like, am I weird, or does that happen to other people?
No,
we all the time.
Okay.
You're completely transported back to that moment. Like, I remember the first time I heard this song, where I was at, what I was doing, and it could be, a decade since you heard it last.
Yeah.
I remember.
I love it.
I remember hearing Hotel California for the first time. I was sitting on a curb at a bus stop. I was probably 10, and somebody had a boombox or something close to that, and was playing it. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is the stupidest song I ever heard. I have no idea what the song's about.
Never heard of that hotel.
And I don't want to go, because you're locked in, you're trapped. I don't want to go.
Sounds awful. Sounds awful as a 10-year-old.
Now, of course, I love the Eagles and I love that song, but back then I just had no idea.
Thank God, because if you...
No, I'll never forget sitting on the bus stop, waiting for the bus, sitting there thinking, what is this? This is stupid.
Well, I'm glad that you remember. That's super cool. And I would love to know, like, if you could go back to your 10-year-old self, like, what did you really think that it was about a hotel? Just like people being
That's
trapped in
what
a
I thought
hotel?
it
Like,
was. I just thought it was
yeah.
about some stupid hotel. And I
Well,
don't
for the
want
longest time, when did you think that came out? Like what, 70s?
to get in
80s?
this.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was young.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know for the longest time, because that's one of the songs that most everybody, even like my kids and stuff, well, if they heard it, they'd be like, yeah, I heard that before. They wouldn't know the words or whatever, but it's just one of those songs that most people kind of know for whatever reason. But I didn't find out what they were talking about till I was an adult. Maybe that was the right time, but I'm just singing around like, welcome, just the whole thing. So getting back to our Vulture, this was one of the questions that he was asked that I just loved his answer about, and I put hearts all the way around it. So this was the question that he was asked: if this is too difficult a territory, let me know. And so as soon as I saw that that was the first line of the sentence, I was like, uh-oh, he's about to twist that knife a little bit. What is he going to ask? He said, if this is too difficult a territory, let me know. But how much has the tragedy you've dealt with in your life colored your feelings about your success? The discomfort you've talked about in the past almost makes it sound as if you feel guilty about what you've achieved. Is there any way in which the tragedy and the guilt are connected? Now, I wonder if he saw a therapy session coming, because that's a fairly deep question, right? What were your thoughts when you read that? And then I'll read what his answer was.
I actually wrote down the words going to therapy because I love this. So I did right here, going to therapy, because
Yep.
he's so good going to therapy because
Yeah.
he so openly talked about it. Now, I went to therapy once years ago. I was 19 and just going through life. And my therapist asked me to say 10 things about myself that I liked. I could not do it, so I never went back. But I wish I would
Wow.
have. True story. I never went back because I could not think of 10 things. I couldn't think of one thing that I liked about myself. So I just quit going. But I like the fact that he was just so open about going to therapy, and that he talked to her. He talked at her the whole time. And I love at the end when she's like, I really think you're doing okay. And good for her for like saying that. And you're this big rock star. I'm going to take your money and I want to get all the dirt on you because, I don't know if I would have done that or not, but gosh, that would have been interesting.
Right.
But,
He was like, you're not going to make a dime off me.
but I just like that he was just so open and honest about seeking help when he needed it. Because, I mean, look at what he lost. He has lost, his dad when he was 10, his sister who was in a murder-suicide. It's one thing to lose a family member or a friend, whoever, but to have it in a murder-suicide is just all the more tragic. Loss is loss. That's just to me, and just being so open and honest about the therapy part.
He's been through a lot of death. I mean, death is something we all have to go through and we will all experience in our life, whether it's a loved one or a friend or family. But I don't know, it's like he got hit a couple times, which, that does happen to a lot, but it's interesting to see how he answered this question. So he said, well, that's an interesting question because I think about the injustice of things. I wonder why I've been so fortunate when I'm as undeserving as anyone. When I hear people that are excessively wealthy or excessively successful saying, well, I've worked for everything I have, he says, well, hang on just a second. What are you talking about? You think you're working harder than the guy who digs ditches for a living? Trade places with him for a week and then talk to me about how hard you've worked. And again, I'm so grateful for what I have, but the amount I've been rewarded does not square with my beliefs. It's hard to wrap my head around how perversely well paid I am, but I do think in my actions, in going out and bringing people joy with music, and there's a good purpose in what I do. So humble, right?
I loved that part that he said all of that. And it is true when you look at, I love that he compared it to you go dig a ditch and then for a week and then you see what it feels like.
Yeah, come back and tell me how you're feeling.
But then on the flip side of Dave, which I love them all, you look at the community work that he does. you know, he gives so much back to the money that he brings in. He wants to build a better life, not just for him and his family, but for the people, for us.
The whole band does, you know,
Yeah,
and
all of
the
them.
whole band does. They really have the same,
Incredible.
the same beliefs in wanting to give back to the community and make sure that, you know, the legacy of what they've been able to do, or maybe legacy is not the word, but the work that they've been able to do through the Dave Matthews Band, through them, you know, this wonderful, successful story, the way they've been able to give back is going to last forever. It'll last beyond the band, right? And so that's when you know you're doing it right, is when your works outdo your physical works, like things you've put in for 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years. It's still going to be seeing the effects of the Dave Matthews Band, and how cool for him to know that.
And they're not braggadocious about it.
Not at all.
They're not sitting there like, hey, I'm giving this money, and they're not making commercials of donate to this. They do it very quiet, very behind the scenes. And every now and then you'll hear that Dave will win awards for being the most, you know, generous person of the year, whatever the case may be. Not the proper verbiage, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, they are just so quiet about it. And that's when you know that that's something that really means something to you. You're not, you know, sitting there bragging about it on TV and at your shows, other than planting trees, which is phenomenal. Look at all the trees. Look about that. For a doll, you know, I mean, they're just so amazing.
His humility is real and true. And again, like you mentioned, how many trees are going to be around forever, and how many farmers has he, you know, helped and supported, and you know, that's going to, you know, give longevity to, you know, these different, you know, farmers across the country. And so I think he uses that to level out his success, and that keeps him humble and grounded, you know, through his giving.
Absolutely. So the next question go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I want to hear you. You know, I love your voice.
Oh God. So my kids, like, I don't let them listen to my podcast for obvious reasons. If you've heard any of the other 16 that I have out there, you know, this is not kid friendly, and I do put the explicit sign on almost all of them, but they want to hear what the hell it is I'm doing locked up, you know, in my office for talking to strangers and all that stuff, you know? So I'm like, okay, well, you can listen to like the beginning or whatever. And every single time they hear it, they're like, that's not you. I'm like, yes, it is. And they're like, no, you don't sound like that at all. And I'm like, what do you mean? How could I sound different? Like, it's the same voice, but I don't know. If you've ever heard yourself talk back, do you feel like you sound like what you think you sound like, or no?
Sweetie, I make 250 phone calls a day for my remote job. And I had a gentleman today started asking me random weird questions. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. I really can't go off script, but I'm going to answer. And finally he started laughing. And I'm like, all right, let me in on the joke. He's like, you just sound so professional, like a recording. I just wanted to ask you questions to make sure I wasn't being, you know, on a robot. He's like, you sound so good. And I find myself though, like on this show, I try to have my inflection back in my voice so I don't sound like, hi, thank you for calling, blah, 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 you know.
It's nice to turn off the work voice for the day and just relax.
It's hard. Now today I'm not, but it is, I could flip it on in a second, but it's really.
You can say fuck on this podcast and I won't believe you.
But you warned me at day one, we got to be careful what we say, Karen. And I'm just like, well, fuck this.
There are a few things that are off which I think that, you know, when I started this podcast, I was definitely like, we're never going to talk about sucking dick. We're never going to talk about like, you know.
So why have me as a guest?
That's me that I don't want to talk about. And we've talked about all of it. So
I faked an orgasm, for Christ's sakes. I faked an orgasm on the last one.
Jesus Christ, I wasn't prepared for that quite.
I
don't know what number that is, but it was Hunger for the Great Light. Hunger for the Great Light, is that what that was? Yeah. Okay, so this is another question that he was asked. When you picture your life without the Dave Matthews Band, what does it look like? Okay, so we're about to hear what Dave says in at least this interview about what does life look like after DMB. And he says, and this sounds so much like what I would imagine he would say, because he did say this, but I like to imagine myself strolling around with an unkept beard and painting pictures, maybe writing music for other reasons. I fantasize about those things because even though I do what I do for a living, quite, I'm quite quiet and reserved as a person. It's like there's nighttime me and daytime me. And nighttime me is Dave, who I don't really like very much. And David is the other me, the one that my mother gave birth to. The two conflict because the greatest things I've managed in my life have actually been done in the calmer situations. I loved that because he kind of was just like, he's thought about it before. And in watching all of those documentaries that I'm sitting through every day, learning about the Dave Matthews Band, I learned something last week that I didn't know, and I felt so dumb not knowing this, especially, that I claim that I know some stuff about whatever I know nothing about the Dave Matthews Band, but like I knew that Dave had a knack for drawing and art because, you see his artwork on so many things, whether it's a guitar or whatever it is. And so I knew that I honestly just thought that was like, my God, how many talents can you have, Dave Matthews? My God, you're so talented. But if you go back through his history and kind of read, like, that's something that he's been good at his whole life, and actually stood out in school for his drawing skills and his ability to paint and create art. I did not know that was something that others knew about him and almost kind of sought after him for, because I want to say the documentary said at some point he went to a school that was specifically like art based because of his passion for art. And so as it's all coming together, I'm like, my God, the fact that he says, he sees himself painting pictures. Of course he does, because that's something that he truly loves to do. That's another one of his passions. And I just wasn't ever like, it never all hit me at once that yes, this is something that he does and that he is really good at, but others know that he's really good at this and he's been good at it forever. Is that something that both of you knew, that even as a small child he was gifted both musically and artistically, drawing and painting?
I
knew
did.
about the art, yeah.
You did. You did.
I think
So I'm the only one.
It makes sense that he has so many different mediums to put his art out through. I think it's just listen to how he answered that question. He knows, like, whenever when it's time to stop the music, he's got another passion that he can continue on. His life is still going to have meaning and purpose, and he's still going to have joy, and he's still going to bring joy to others.
So here's how I see our future without the Dave Matthews Band. I like to imagine that we're sitting around in our house that is covered in art from the Dave Matthews Band gallery, or from the David Matthews gallery. And we could like go buy direct art from Dave after he quit singing.
I would go
show up and at least go through.
I would go. Now, I had heard that before in an interview, that if he could be, someone asked him, if without the band, what would you be? And he had said an artist. I didn't know that he had gone to a school, but I had heard that a long time ago. But it makes sense that these people that are so creative, I'm not creative at all, but you see these people that are so creative that it's not just their one thing that we pigeonhole them in, that they do. There is a different, look at David Grohl today out there cooking barbecue for people.
Can I talk about Dave Grohl for just a minute?
Please.
Can I talk about Dave Grohl? Okay. I just want to do like a PSA for everybody that listens to this, and for you too as well. The Foo Fighters schedule came out, and they're doing a lot of festivals, and they're only going to be at 2 cities that are non-festivals. Guess what cities those are? You got one, Rogers, fucking Arkansas. Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
And then like Pelham, Alabama. Now, how Alabama and Arkansas got picked for the Foo Fighters to do a show, not a festival. Come to Bentonville, Arkansas.
Pelham is amazing. I used to live about 5 miles from that venue and used to go. I've seen so many people in the Pelham one. It is a great venue.
I'm so excited.
When are they coming? Is it on our tour? Or is it after our tour?
So yeah, I'm actually going to be able to make it because it's June 14th. And so obviously I know Dave's got some stuff going on, but I'm not going to be at any June shows except for Deer Creek, which is the end. But so yeah, I'm so excited that like within a matter of weeks, I have Dave Matthews Band in my backyard, and then the Foo Fighters, and there's going to be a lot of other really big people coming. But again, this should just put Rogers on the map. And someone was talking about this earlier, that you got to stop saying it's the AMP, because the Arkansas Music Pavilion, it has nothing to do with Arkansas. It has everything to do with Walmart and bringing bands in, because Walmart sells music. We can't forget that. Like, Walmart is one of the biggest companies that sells music to people. And so, and it's a platform for these bands and advertising and all that. So it's no surprise that they're coming, because really it all is Walmart. So put Rogers, Arkansas on your list. Like, we are the next big venue. I just know it. So, and I'm here. I'll be at all of them.
Rogers.
Okay, Karen, yeah, Karen, you're coming. Cameron, you should just, it's
Well, we
not that
got there.
far.
We got there. We're gonna ride the rail just like we did last year. We got there. I'm just
We
saying,
did.
we got that.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be really awesome.
Okay,
So,
question.
so what is the next question? So,
I was one of the things that I wrote down, and the other thing that I really like, and this is something that I had experienced. Dave was talking about his choice of concerts that he likes to see, and does he like us Dave people? And first of all, sir, I have only been drunk at one of your concerts that I was in the Medic Tech. Thank you. So you can't judge. Yes, you were there. You can't judge all of us. We are not all a bunch of drunk. But I thought it was fascinating that he was talking about that he likes to play. He would prefer a quiet concert. That's what he enjoys, but he doesn't want to let us down and pigeonhole us. And it's so funny because in Ireland back in whatever 2007, I actually have the Dublin poster on my wall. But before I moved to Ireland, I went and saw Dave and Tim. And at first I'm all excited and everyone's quiet, and they come out and no one's standing up and no one's singing. And I'm kind of looking around like, wow, this kind of sucks. No one's singing. And then I ended up being one of my favorite shows, because you actually got to listen to the music, listen to their pure voices. When they had a conversation, they explained things, and Dave talked about stuff. And here's why I wrote this song. My Grace Is Gone. That was one of the hardest hitting songs for my life. And then when he explained what it was really about, it just like changed my whole world. And it was so cool being able to actually listen. And I just wonder what it would be like if 20,000 of us just sat down and quietly listened. Because he's like, joy. He's like, if I go to a concert, and he even said that's how, that's how he sees what he enjoys, and that's how we pay respect. But we all, us, the fans, just pay respect in a different way, and that's okay too.
I had the exact same thought reading that. It's really, I think it's hard to find, I think I made a note, it's hard to find those moments of stillness and quiet when it's that large crowd, and the Dave rituals are in full effect, and it's like it's this really solemn, intimate moment in the song. You're just trying to be in a moment that can be really difficult. So I think I appreciate his, wanting some quiet.
I do too. And it's amazing to see when everyone's quiet. It really is just a beautiful, I still have the same goosebumps. I still get the same tears in my eyes for certain songs, but I actually pay more attention to the message. Hear it.
Right.
I actually hear it in my head and in my heart. I actually hear the message with the quiet. And sometimes quiet's okay. There's nothing.
Oh my gosh. Yes. The music can do something completely different when it's quiet, right? Because it just puts you in a different headspace. I don't know that I will ever get to experience that, because that sounds like that's more of a European or South America type. I don't know. Was it South America? Was Brazil quiet? Are they quiet down there? Or are they loud? I can't remember. Or is it just Europe tends to be quieter at concerts?
It's just that way, because the funny thing is like 2 or 3 months after I saw Dave and Tim, I flew back to Ireland because I hadn't moved there yet. I was finding my apartment. I flew back to Ireland just for the band. And you could see the Americans. It was so hodgepodge of 10 people here sitting, 3 people are standing up screaming. 20 people are sitting and everyone's looking, and I was actually standing up singing like we do. And these people behind me, Irish, were like, can you please, I can't do it in an Irish accent, but can you please sit down? We're trying to enjoy the show. And I'm like, well, cocky American, oh, well, I'm sorry, but this is a Dave Matthews Band show in the United States. And they're like, but we want to enjoy it. And that kind of clicked in my head. Like, we just enjoy music different. They want to sit and listen and enjoy. And here I am, my obnoxious self, standing up and just singing and saying, I don't care. I did actually sit down because I'm very respectful of that. And in the end, looking back, I'm really glad that I did, because they love the music that I do. That's why they have tickets to the show. But you just enjoy it different than I do, and it doesn't make it right or wrong how you enjoy it, as long as you are enjoying it. And I don't want to be the buzz killer of your night and have you never want to go to a Dave Matthews Band concert.
No, for
I got
sure.
to sit for one show after all the shows I've been to, I was perfectly fine, as long as I know that you are enjoying it and we'll come back, because now we're family.
So one of these questions says, do you see a finish line for what you do at the scale in which you're doing it? And he said, at this point in my life, I don't see dancing on stage forever. And dancing is too strong of a word for what I do. I love that. When
I love that.
He says, I shake up and down, and I sort of I shake up and down sort of in correspondence to the music, while my head sticks out awkwardly. It seems unimaginable that I would do that endlessly. When I look at someone like Neil Young, he's like Thor. He's slaying monsters with his guitar. It's unimaginable that he would ever stop playing music. But for me, no, I can't see doing it forever, and not because I'm ungrateful. He's just saying, I can't do this forever. And I think that would be abnormal to expect him to do that forever. I mean, some people, Willie Nelson, for instance, he's going to do it till he dies. I feel like I see that, or, if his health declines to the point where he couldn't travel anymore, but that's not everyone's passion, is to be in the spotlight forever, because there are things that will come that will change their perspective of what's important, in life when planning tours. Like when those kids start having kids, and he becomes a grandfather, like, you don't know how you're going to react or respond to any of that until you're actually in that season of life. So, it won't be 10 years. And those kinds of things are the conversations that the interviews that will be going on, is like, how has grandparenthood changed your life as an artist? And, Karen, I know that you're a grandparent. So because you are, how can being a grandparent take away from like what is important in your personal life, and then just like being gone all the time? Or, tell me how having a grandchild can change your ideas of that.
Well, first of all, being a grandmother is the most, I'm not going to cry in this one, the most spectacular job I've ever had. It is that little human, man, the love that I feel for that kid, my little Kaiser, it is so spectacular. On one hand, I think about, if I were a songwriter, all the amazing feelings and emotions and lyrics I could write about my grandson and the life that we have. On the other hand, not being able to see him, like I just this past year and a half since I moved to Myrtle Beach, no stalkers, please don't come to my house, but
Myrtle Beach is a big city.
Please don't. I know I'm amazing, just don't. But I get to see him a couple times a month. Like I was just at the zoo with my other bestie, Amanda, and we're feeding giraffes, and, we play science games where, we're making brains and guts and boogers, and, I get to see him every couple months or every couple weeks versus 2 times a year. And the things that I've missed out on that I didn't realize I missed out on until I see him all the time. And, just the music I could write on that. I could retiring, and that's why Dave, some of his songs are just like, come tomorrow, perfect song for the way that I feel, about my grandson. And I could see him when that time comes, just saying, I'm done now. I could see him still touring. It's not going to be this whole summer that he does.
Mhm.
And
Probably not.
it's not, it may be 2 or 3 or 4 shows. We all may be paying $1,000 a ticket for that 1 or 2 or 3 shows a summer, and well worth it to me. I would still pay it to go see him until he decides. But again, just like we just earlier spoke about, he's still going to be involved in some kind of medium.
Mhm.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
it's me buying art and going to a museum where I see his pictures, you know what? I have like 90 posters, half of them still in tubes, half of them. Well, Renee, you've seen my Dave cave at my other house. I have a ton of posters, but I don't have them all hung up. I'm still going to be doing something in his medium that's going to involve Dave Matthews and the band in my
I think
life.
it would, I agree. I think God, even now, if I could get my hands on like something that he drew, I would totally frame that and put that in
One of
my
the
house.
guitars that I try
Mhm.
to win that he's drawn the picture on.
Well,
Oh my God,
yeah.
so many. Please, why can't I win that just once? Just one
Yeah.
time.
So nice. And it seems like they probably all are very unique. Like there's not one just like the other.
I wanted him to draw a tattoo.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
my younger sister, is also a huge fan, and she met him, and he wrote his name on her arm, like huge, like all the way down.
Yes.
And she went and had it tattooed, and I'm like, you bitch. Now I have.
That was your dream.
If you wrote that on my chest, Dave Matthews, I'm going to go have a chest tattoo of Dave Matthews, because I will always have something that he has touched in some kind of way.
You're gonna wear a tank top every day, like a low cutting
And I
tank
could
top.
take forever. Yeah.
It's my boyfriend totally signed my chest.
I'm not going to be nasty about it, because it's not about that. But I would always have something that he touched with his hands on my body anywhere. I don't care if it's on my foot. I could care less of wherever it is. It's just about me knowing.
Right.
That tangible
Or on
memory.
my ass.
Yes, exactly.
It's big
Exactly.
enough. You can have your whole full name on that.
David. Can't even sign that way.
John Matthews.
Yeah, yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for helping me create episode 17, as we are calling it, Vulture. And this is something that I had printed out and read several times, and knew that I wanted to do a podcast specifically about this. And the reason why it stuck out to me now is this kind of puts us in the mindset of what he was thinking before Come Tomorrow released. And so here we are in that same space again, where the new album is fixing to drop in. So, how many things have they learned in the 5 years it has been since the last album release, and what changes they're looking to make, and we all know that they're bringing some stuff back from the past and making it present, so that it's actually documented on an album now, instead of just being a bootleg copy of whatever, that you got, because you could never get it. And so I'm excited to see what this album holds. I really would like to digest Monsters very soon, just to kind of get, is it Monster or Monsters? His new song. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't even think I've heard it yet. I keep listening for it. But now that I work at home, I don't play a lot of music because I'm on the phone all day, so I'm missing it.
Well, from what I gathered, he played it in Mexico. And so that was kind of like the debut, I believe. I don't know. And so I really want to try to track it down and look at it and be familiar with it before it's thrown at us this summer, because we know hopefully it will be. I look for them to be singing a lot of the songs from that album, because they're going to start pushing an album, and that's when you start singing some album songs. I remember when 2018 came out, I went to or when Come Tomorrow came out, they did sing a lot of those songs, and it's funny because some of those songs that they sang, God, they sang it in 2018 and then didn't sing it again for many years. So I feel like 2023 is going to be a special year of hearing some songs that we may not hear a lot of in the future. They're just pushing that album and making it known. So I think this year will be amazing. I think it will be memorable, just like every year has been. I think it will just be a little bit different, and different is great. Different is great. I love it.
Different is great. Change is great. You might get less covers this year. That's great too.
Yes.
Always a good thing.
One thing that will not happen this year for me, and I'm sad to say, I still will never say fixing to. Never said it in my
Stop
life.
it. How many times have I
Not
said that?
ever. A lot. Not ever.
No. She picks on me every time. And I'm like, I don't know. Everyone I know says fixing to. Okay. Everyone I know. I think that that's a North Carolina thing, which I picked that up from my father. I don't think it's a Texas thing or an Arkansas thing or whatever. It's
Never
a North
said
Carolina
fixing
thing.
to.
You
Never
live in
heard.
South Carolina.
Ohio, they said fitting to. Fitting
Oh,
to.
fitting to.
There you go. Well, I grew
Maybe-
up in Virginia. Don't forget, I grew up in Virginia. I just live in South Carolina. I'm not from here. I grew up in Virginia, and I never
Right.
grew up saying fixing to. Sorry. I will never say those words.
Virginia and North Carolina or Virginia and Texas are not the same. We have our own words.
We do.
We just make shit up and go,
We
That's-
do.
that's
and
a new
fixing
word.
to is one of them. It's but it is big in North Carolina. Yeah, it is. But yeah, I've never.
yeah. That's my daddy coming
I
through
might
the
bring the
North
girls
Carolina
out to
roots.
Myrtle Beach this year.
Well, come on out.
I have to let you know if we make it out. My brother lives in Charlotte, so we may try and fly in there and get a car and head to the beach.
It's quicker if you fly into Charlotte and then just hop on a plane to Myrtle Beach. Just like a half-hour flight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's very. I'll pick you up. Let me know.
That'll work.
Well, guys, thank you so much again for being willing to do another podcast. And thank you to everyone that's listened on whatever app it is that you listen to get your podcast. But if you are listening to this and you go, what do these crazy people look like? There's a good chance this is also going to be on YouTube. So you'll get to see Cameron, Mrs. Matthews, also known as Karen. And then I don't think I'm going to be on this, but they say they can see me. I just can't see myself. So look on the YouTube channel. It's under Kiss on the Lipsmeyer, and that's the name of the channel. Again, Karen, thank you so much for being on. And last little plug, I got these beautiful stickers. It says the first little merch. So Cameron, I got your email. Karen, you know you're going to get one. So if anyone's interested in getting a Space Between podcast sticker to put on your what is the poster? I was thinking the poster tubes. That'll be great. They're on a poster tube or whatever, or hell, wherever you want to put it on your cup.
I'm
Let
fixing
me
to
know.
put it everywhere.
Fixing to. I'm fixing to do that. So
Fixing
just
to put
email
that
me.
on everything.
Email me at kissonthelipsmeyer@gmail.com and I will send you one for free. Thank you guys so much for being willing to do this. And we will see you again next Thursday for another episode of The Space Between. Thank you guys so much.
Peace out.
Thanks.